There was, as far as we could see, no incoming artillery of any kind whatsoever. So here they are, the guys we've been following around for quite some time. Some of them have absolutely no military experience whatsoever. They were able to get their weapons out of arsenals they looted from the Libyan army. They're big on style. Here, Mary, check this dude out right here. He's looking good. So they're very big on style. We've seen similarly well-styled fighters back in Sierra Leone 11 years ago. So this man, like us often, spends a lot of time looking at the horizon, because one of our worries is that the Gaddafi forces could be outflanking us in the desert. The Libyan army seems to be much quicker at adapting to the new situation than these men, who seem to just follow the same tactics day after day, and the result is, unfortunately for them, no advance and usually just retreat. The Libyan army, however, has changed its tactics. It doesn't use tanks anymore because they're easily hit by coalition aircraft. What they do is now drive around in civilian cars, dressed as civilians. Oftentimes their cars have the flags of the revolutionary forces just to deceive their enemies. So, always not quite sure what's going on out here. You ask people things, and usually their information is wrong because they heard it from somebody else who heard it from somebody else who heard it from somebody else. So we try to give you backstory, the information we can get. Back to you.
Back to Ben and Ashdabia. Now, Ben, the rebel groups have slammed the NATO commanders and their tactics over the last couple of days. What have they been saying?
Oh, they're very unhappy with the situation. One rebel commander I spoke to at the front line told me he suspects that NATO has cut a backroom deal with Libyan leadership, because that's his only explanation for the lack of attacks. This evening, Abdel Fattah Yunus, the head of military forces for the transitional national government in Benghazi, harshly criticized NATO. He says they give them regular information and coordinates for Libyan army forces in the eastern part of the country, but they just don't seem to be doing anything. Certainly in this area, the situation, the weather conditions are perfect. Sunny days, clear, hardly any clouds in the sky, but NATO commanders have said that weather is one of the factors. They also say that another factor is the possibility or the probability that Libyan army forces are hiding among civilians, using them as human shields, but that just doesn't seem to be enough to satisfy people in this part of the country who really feel let down by NATO.
Yeah, would you really say the rebels at this point, at least from a military point of view, really are a lost cause?
I wouldn't say a lost cause, but certainly they have a tendency to get overextended, to push way ahead when they can, only to be pushed way back. They certainly aren't lacking for enthusiasm. They really passionately oppose Muammar Gaddafi and his sons and the government in Tripoli. And what we've seen is that they're not very good on the open highways and the open countryside, but when it comes to urban warfare, when several weeks back the Libyan army forces almost got to the inside of Benghazi itself, they ran up against some pretty heavy resistance by these people who take advantage of their knowledge of the local terrain and the fact that they are defending their homes. I mean, just look at Misrata, the city in the western part of the country, which has put up a fierce resistance to Libyan forces in that area, despite the incredibly difficult conditions. So not a lost cause, but they need training, they need equipment, they need basic things like communications. The cell phone system up at the front simply doesn't work. In fact, it doesn't work here in Ashdabia, so they have no way to even know whether when they see some trucks moving nearby them in the desert, is that friend or foe? So very difficult, but not a lost cause.
Certainly not yet. Okay, Ben Wiedemann live for us in Ashdabia. Thank you, Ben. Well, there's more to come on Libya. Nick Robertson is in Tripoli. He's cutting through the Libyan government's spin.
Not for the first time, I'm left wondering why the government insists on treating journalists like us as fools.
Nick tells us why getting to the truth in Libya can be a challenging task.